Hey everybody, this is Holly from Holly's Pandorium, and I am very excited to spend some time today with Samantha from Four Moon Witchery. Hello, Samantha.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. So the fun part is, folks, is I have not heard her stories yet, so we get to hear them for the first time together, which will be wonderful. And so tell us, please, Sam, a paranormal story that you had personally.
Okay. Well, probably the earliest one I remember is one night I was feeling very sick, very congested. I was a child. I would say I was maybe 10, maybe younger. And I went to bed that night feeling very sick. And then I remember at some point sitting up in the middle of the night and I turned around and I saw my body was still there, but I was sat up. And I remember things were very still. And then this white figure was by the side of my bed, and he shook his head and he put his hand on my chest and pushed me back down. And the biggest thing that stood out for me during this time was like when he pushed me down, I remember feeling the like it was like a very deep, cold breath. And
Okay.
then the next day when I woke up, my flu, congestion, everything was gone.
Wow. And how old were you again?
I was around 10.
Wow. So at that age, were you able to communicate that to anybody, or did you feel safe to share that?
I tried, but growing up in a severe Christian household, a lot of the stuff was really looked down on, and like a lot of stuff was considered demonic. Like there was a lot of Disney movies that I wasn't even allowed to watch because they had magic in them. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow. Yep. I understand that. I grew up Catholic, and it was a lot of fear stuff was instilled in me about anything that was out of the norm.
absolutely.
So I get that. I get that. And you said you had another story too.
Yes, actually. This one here ties the past to the present, actually. So when I was younger, my great uncle was one of my favorite people.
Mhm.
And then when I was about 12 or 13, he ended up having some complications with surgery. This made him very sick. It affected his brain. And in his last days, he completely forgot everyone. He didn't recognize his mom or his sisters or his girlfriend who he'd been with for like ever. So my parents took me to see him, but they were like, just so you know, he's not going to recognize you. But if you
Oh,
want to say goodbye, we'll take you in.
okay.
So I walk in the room and he recognized me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he said my name. And I went over to his bed and he said, I love you. And those were the last coherent words that he said to anybody.
Wow. And
Okay.
how old were you then?
I was
When?
around 12.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So then a couple nights later, I'm at my grandmother's house for a sleepover,
Hmm.
and he had his own room at
Hmm.
her house because on Sundays they would always get together for Jig's dinner and
Hmm.
just spend Sundays together.
Right.
So when I went down, I would always sleep in that room.
Hmm.
And that night, I dreamt that I was in that bed
Hmm.
and a shadow man appeared at the door.
Hmm.
And the shadow man just stood there. And he couldn't come in unless I invited him. And I don't know how I knew that, but I did, in fact, know that.
Okay.
Um, he was like, let me in. I'm your uncle. And I was able to see through him.
Okay.
Like I recognized him as not being my uncle.
Ah, okay.
And I said to him, I said, you cannot come in. Like, no, you are not him, whatever.
Nice.
and he screamed. And when he did, I don't remember if he stomped on the ground or if he slammed his hands on the ground, but when he did, he turned into a million black bugs and swarmed me like a complete blanket. But he himself could not come in. He was able to like kind of do that, but not come in. And then actually within the last month, I was meditating and this story played out in front of me. And I
Okay.
got the message that when my uncle saw me that time,
Right.
he did something to trigger a gift of sight.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. It does.
And then it's funny because a couple years after this uncle died, I had another dream that I was at my other grandmother's house and her father appeared at the front door and
Uh-huh.
he was knocking and asking to come in. But I also was able to see through him and be like, no, this is like not,
Right.
like you're something else. I'm not letting you in. And
Right.
everything is always the same. Like the details in these dreams are immaculate.
Yeah. Right.
And then the final time that this shadow man appeared was actually about 4 years ago when my grandmother died.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very bold. Like it came to me in like, I almost want to say true form, but I feel like it still had to be like something my brain could process.
Okay.
So it was like this ball of energy, and it was like, you know who I am, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I want,
Mm-hmm.
and it dangled my grandmother in front of me, and it said, you can have her in the dream world, you just have to let me in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to pause you for just a second because I need to do a public service message.
Yeah.
Okay, for anyone listening to this, when you have an actual visit from the other world, from the veil, from a family member, they can stand right next to you. They're already part of your circle of life. They're already part of your soul contract. They can come right up to you because they are supposed to be able to, because they love you. A shadow person, by contrast, has some boundaries. The fact that Samantha was able to see and know that there was a difference was amazing because not everyone does. Unfortunately, they close off their gifts and their tuning. And as I've mentioned before, people have like radio frequencies for these things. And when your channel on your personal brain radio is on the right channel, you can see and hear things very clearly. When she experienced this, and then that shadow man presented bugs to come over and crawl around her, that's all imagination. And the reason why I say that is shadow people have the ability to generate things in front of us that appear real that are not. So he was able to create something by form of imagination just to appear as something's going on, and it feels real. It can smell real. You can touch it sometimes. It's not real for you. It's a manifestation of a delusion or an illusion to scare the beans out of you because they eat our fear. That's their food source. That's how they survive. Their goal is to scare the crap out of us. And so their job is to try and get permission to get as close to us as possible, to get as much from us as they are able to. So I'm not sure why he keeps coming back to you, but we can talk about that in another moment. But for right now, if you do have an experience where you are resting, and that's usually when we are a little bit weaker when we're resting. Our brains are a little more open, we're more relaxed, we tend to hear things a little better because we're not doing anything else but resting. And so in your bed, when you hear or see things, be mindful of what it is that you are opening your mind to. Be mindful of what it is you are looking at. And remember, your family is never going to scare the crap out of you. They might startle you, but they're not going to harm you in any way, shape, or form ever, ever. The only time I've ever had somebody that had a little bit of a scare, it was done in jest because that was part of their relationship in life, was startling each other, and it was all in fun, and it was known immediately. It was not discovered later. So in a general sense, just remember, your family loves you. They can come near you all on their own. Someone who's not connected to you is going to try to appear friendly. They're going to try to deceive you by any means possible, and they're going to use stuff in your imagination that bothers you. They already know. They've been watching you, and they already know what freaks you out. So they're going to bring imagery to you to help you become more vulnerable. They want to bring up your fear. They want to bring up the things that annoy you or scare you, because your emotion is full of energy. When somebody is excited and they go, wee, that's an energy. And when you're scared, that's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother energy. And these creatures, I'll call them that for now. These creatures, that's their Scooby snack. That's their ice cream. They love it. So the more scared you are, the more they're going to continue with that. So please continue with your story. So what happened next?
Well, nothing good. Basically, after this last encounter that involved my grandmother, I would frequently have nightmares where she was behind glass and she was trapped. I would say her appearance was like kind of zombie-like, but
Okay.
you know, and she would always look me in the eye and she would be like beat up and you know, suffering, and she'd be like, "Why would you leave me here? You left me here. You
Oh,
just had to say yes," type thing. And then so you know, I did some cleansing and some working through that. And
right.
then her image actually started coming to me as the entity. And it would be her, but she would be dressed in black and her eyes would be red.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be how I knew it wasn't her.
Right.
And with what you were saying about, you know, when it's actually your loved ones coming to visit you, it won't scare you.
Nope. It will
That
not.
is so like the difference in the energy. Like I've also had a family member of mine who passed away wanted to try to help another family member.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to come in my dream, and when they came, we walked on this lovely path with petals, and we were able to sit on a bench and have a conversation. And
Right.
they were like, "Listen, I need you to do something. Um, you know, like I need you to talk to this person. Here's what's going on."
Right.
And so forth. Like the difference is so insane. And what
Yes.
I try to tell my own family is if there's something appearing to you that is claiming to be someone you know, if
Right.
they need permission, don't grant it.
Correct.
Right?
That's the number one rule. If they
Mm-hmm.
have to ask, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And the important thing to remember there is, think for a moment, why would someone that you love in your family have to ask permission to get near you? That's
Mm-hmm.
your first clue.
Especially someone like that you're missing, you
Absolutely.
know, someone that you wish you could like hold and hug
Right.
and hear their voice.
But see, that's the trick. That's the catch. That's the rub. People's immediate response is, well, of course you can come near me, because that's what these spirits and energies are counting on, is that you will be misled in such a way that you'll just invite them in.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us have the common sense, even in a half sleep state, to go, what? Wait a minute. Always trust your instincts. Trust your body. Your body knows.
Mm-hmm.
Body knows. It's important to respond carefully to what happens. So you had this happen several times, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah. So how were you able to finally get away from that happening to you?
It's a good question. I think I just like I really did shadow work. Like there was some um how do I explain this? My grandmother's death was unexpected,
Okay.
and there was a lot of things that I needed to work through surrounding her death, which I
Okay.
was avoiding. Like I went into a dissociative state about it for about, I'd say, just over 4 years.
Okay.
Like she passed away in 2019, and it
Hmm.
was only in 2023 that I was even able to start dealing with it.
Okay.
So I feel like that was used a lot against me
Sure.
in these dreams.
Right.
So I feel like when I actually started doing the work, doing the shadow work, taking the time to heal and work through my feelings, I
Right.
think that was the turning point.
Okay. So for people that don't know what that means, because we're using terminology, please share what, no, that's perfect. Please do what you can to explain what shadow work means. What does that mean? Because it's kind
Okay.
of a broad term. So in
Hmm.
your instance, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, what was your version of shadow work for that particular need?
Okay. So basically, like the shadow self is the things that you don't want to confront, is the stuff you don't like about yourself, your situation, things you just shove on the back burner.
Right.
So some people, in order to work through these um, shadow situations,
Right.
they do journaling, some do meditating, which meditation for me is my preferred method. I
Okay.
do some journaling,
Hmm.
but mainly it's meditation for me.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. So this is something, when you hear the term shadow work, people tend to connect that terminology with someone who is a practicing witch. And so this is one of my favorite things to share, because human beings all need to do some form of self-analysis. As we get older, we tend to figure out that there are things about ourselves that could use a little work. And whether you want to call it shadow work or not, it's a wonderful, useful tool. This is something that people that have practiced witchcraft have done for millennial. They are self-discovery type of tasks to help you deal with things that cause you issue, things that are challenging for you, or things that create grief in your life. It's something that can be done very personally by yourself, or you can ask for help with it. But it's a wonderful, wonderful way to deal with something that is very challenging in your life. And it's not a quick fix. It is not a pill. It is not a medication. It is not going to a therapist. It's literally going inside your own mind and feelings and being really honest, which is scary as hell sometimes to do that. But it's very useful, and I highly recommend it. A lot of times it's just as simple as buying a journal. If you've ever gone to a pagan event, you will find lots and lots of blank books. That's one of the main purposes of those, is to just journal things that challenge you, or journal things that you would like to work on. It's self-discovery, and I think it's amazing. So good job dealing with that. And grieving for 4 years for someone that you were deeply connected to is not uncommon and not unusual. I'm never more horrified and shocked when I hear that there are different sects of our society that believe that 2 weeks is the maximum, or a year, for grieving. I find that completely absurd. Um, I've lost all of my adult family. I've moved into the senior generation of my family, which is really weird, because when all of your adult leadership in your family is gone, you feel a bit like an orphan for a while. It's very odd to become the senior generation. It's very strange. And I can tell you that it's scary and weird for a while, because you're really not sure, am I ready to be an older person? Do I know how? Everybody made it look so natural. My grandparents and my parents look like they just knew what they were doing all the time. And I've learned they didn't. They figured it out. And we do. We figure it out little by little. Um, so I love that you shared this, because you were very vulnerable after your grandmother died. And that's definitely a soft spot for you. And they played you on that.
Mm.
This is where I think more people are not ready to hear this. And so if you're not ready, I hope you're sitting down, everybody. When you are at a loss, when you have a cold, when you are grieving, when you are angry, when you have something that really gets your goat, that really bothers you or really harms you or makes, especially sadness. Sadness is a never-ending well in our souls. It's huge and it can go down deep. And when you are engaged in that emotion and that feeling, you become a target. You become something that negative energy is extremely attracted to. If you can think of the most beautiful flower in the garden during spring for a bee, it's like that times 10. It's very easy to get an attachment or get near something that's very toxic that could really challenge you and really make it harder for you to stand back up and get back to your normal thoughts and feelings. So it's really great that you found that awareness and that you were able to not only identify it, but start to work towards making that not part of your life experience and getting away from that. So that took a lot of skill and a lot of time. So good job. That's
Thank
not
you.
that's not easy at all.
It's
And
probably one of the hardest things I've ever done.
absolutely. And grieving has a place and time. You don't have to ever stop missing someone you love, because you don't. They're always in your heart. But it's not easy to not be around them. Even knowing that they have an afterlife is not enough, even for an old medium like me. I still miss my mom. You know, she comes to visit me and I know when she's here, but it's still not the same as a hug. It's not the same as, you know, having a cup of coffee with her at the table or getting to hold her hand. Those things are very absent from my life and I feel them deeply. So I think it's great to be able to grieve because we've earned it. That's a big loss.
Absolutely.
That's a big loss. And we need, that's a compassion that you can't just pick up. You kind of have to go through it. So your ability to deal with what you're having will come in handy later. I am quite sure. I am quite sure. So I would love to hear more about this Four Moon stuff. And where did you come up with that name? I'm going to put up a way for people to reach you. And please, let's tell people what you do now. And where did you get that name? I love that.
Well, I've always had a connection with the moon.
Okay.
And between me and my fiance, we have 4 kids.
Okay.
And I practice witchcraft.
Okay.
So it's funny because Four Moon actually started out as book reviews.
Okay.
And I did book reviews under that name for like a few years.
Mhm.
But then that wasn't fun anymore. And I was, wanted to expand my witchcraft. I wanted to start doing like tarot publicly at markets and stuff. And I was thinking of a name and thinking of a name. And my oldest stepdaughter was actually like, you should be Four Moon Witchery, so that like you could be like the Smosh Enterprises and you could
Oh,
like build an empire.
nice. That's wonderful.
So we call it the Four Mooniverse.
Okay. Perfect. And so for people that are just listening to this broadcast, can you please say the name of your business and where people can reach you?
Yep, it's Four Moon Witchery, FOUR Moon Witchery. I am on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. I'm not great at updating Instagram. I do often forget that it's there. So
I get that.
Facebook is probably the best way to reach me, or you can email me at fourmoonwitchery@yahoo.com.
Okay. Wonderful. So tell me, you're doing this witchery stuff. How old were you when you figured out that that was going to be part of your lifestyle?
I was about okay, so when I was about 27, I bought my first deck of tarot cards. My Christian background still had a bigger hold on me than I thought. So I donated them back to the thrift store.
I get
And
it.
then when I was, I'm going to say 31, 32,
Mhm.
I ordered my first deck online. And I said, you know what? I'm going to face the anxiety. I'm going to face the fear. This is something I have always loved. Growing
Right,
up, I always had a deck of cards in my hand. I
right,
was doing something with them.
right.
And I just decided that this was my life. And here I was, 31 years old, two
Yeah,
children, living
yeah,
on my own, and still afraid for my family to find out what I was doing.
right.
But I just made a decision and
The
been
rest is,
growing ever since.
yeah. So I have a funny tarot story I can share. So when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, somewhere in there, I had, yeah, late, yeah. So I had friends that were witches that I loved dearly. I'd known for many years. And I was at a barbecue, and one of my friends said, I need for you to meet my auntie. She's very nice, and I can't wait for you to meet her. And I sit down in front of this woman, and she was the first person I ever met that did a color analysis. I didn't know that that was a thing. And so she explained a lot of things to me about why people responded to me the way I did, because I naturally have very dark hair and I have very bright blue eyes, and it's very startling to look at sometimes. And so she explained how people respond to someone with winter colors. Okay. And so that was interesting and amazing. And then she ended up pulling out this very old, raggedy cardboard box and pulled out these tarot cards. And I went, uh-oh, you know, and she said, these are for you. And I was very gracious and said thank you. And I thought, what am I going to do with these? Oh my gosh. I wasn't even sure that it was okay to have them, because I was still feeling and fearing the unknown. Even though I'd done psychic readings for most of my life, it was like the unknown about, what is this tool? I know it's a tool for divination, but should I have it or not? I just didn't know. And so I gave them to my oldest son and asked him to save them for me, because I was concerned that I might burn them or throw them away out of fear. And instinctively, I just knew I should wait, because they were old. And I value antiques so much, it bothered me that they were older, and I treasured that they were a gift and that someone had good intentions for me to be kind and share this tool with me. And I thought, I just need time to figure this out. 20 years later, I realized it was time to look at them. And my son couldn't find him and couldn't find him and couldn't find him. And I'm mortified. And I thought, no. And sure enough, he had him. He found him, and he sent him to me. But it's not something I use every day, but I do use them, and I've learned a lot. And it's for me. It's not something I use to read for other people. It's just for me. Because one of the most amazing parts about having psychic gifts and mediumship abilities is there's some things I can do for myself, and there's a lot of things I cannot. So having tarot cards for me is for personal divination purposes most of the time. And I'm very grateful, because there's a lot of information in them. And I realize now that there's not a wicked piece of paper on them. There's nothing about them that's wicked. And they're comforting to me. You know, they're another part of my life in the paranormal that I've learned is where it's supposed to be. It's right where it's supposed to be. It's not out of place. And I don't have so much of the Christian upbringing fear of things that I didn't understand growing up. Anything that was new, anything that was different was bad. Fire, bad. I mean, it was just so overwhelming. And to be able to move past that is really amazing. A lot of things have opened up for me, and I'm a lot calmer about things that I don't know about, as an older person, thankfully. So yeah, I'm very glad. So I had the fortune of having a mom who was willing to talk about things at the kitchen table, nowhere else, but and certainly not in public. So what did you have for resources growing up having these experiences? Did you get a friend to finally talk to, or how did you get to open up about these things?
I didn't get to open up about these things until I was in my 30s.
Wow, so a long time.
So, yeah, I'm actually like, you know, I didn't really know anyone I could talk to, and
Right,
everyone in my family was like mortified. Like,
right.
anytime I would tell my dad or anyone of a dream, he was literally like, he would always turn white and he
Oh,
looked so scared.
oh,
And they were all just like, that's demons, it's demons. So, I just kind of shut it down. But the
yeah,
funny thing is that my grandmother that passed away and, unexpectedly,
right.
she used to randomly record spots on the wall, and she would record the wall for like 5 or 6 minutes, and nothing would be there. And then she'd record the picture frame, and she would record the floor. And then in one of these videos, she actually caught a shadow walking across the house, which,
Love that.
speaking,
Love that. That's awesome.
I think that, like, she always said that she was just testing out her camera, but I believe that she saw things.
Sure.
Like, you can't convince me.
Right,
And even the energy from this video.
right,
And now, when I saw the video, I had no idea what an energy reader was, much less that I was one.
right,
And, like, the legs, you can clearly see them on the video.
right,
And someone said, "Are you scared?" And she said, "No, they're not. Like, they're not scary legs. They're friendly legs."
right.
You know? And it's only been recently that I've realized that those legs, they were my uncle's that I was talking about earlier.
Right.
Like, now at this time, he was dead for like um 15 years or so.
That's
But,
awesome.
you know, and then with another interesting thing that happened with my grandmother is when my mom was a baby, my nan had some friends over and they wanted to have a seance. And
Mhm,
they were like doing the seance. I don't know if they were in the bathroom or
mhm.
if they were out in the house, but there was something to do with the bathroom.
Okay,
Anyways, my grandmother took my mother as a baby and she took her into the bedroom and she said, "I'm taking," and called her by name, "in
mhm.
the bedroom because this is not having any part of her."
Okay,
And during the seance, there was actually a shadow person that
mm,
stood in my grandmother's bedroom door, but
okay.
couldn't come in,
Yeah,
obviously, because she said,
right,
I'm keeping my daughter from this.
right, right.
And to this day, my mother has never, ever had a paranormal experience.
Interesting.
And she literally had like my mother and my stepfather were in bed one night, and um his friend showed up at their house and
Mhm,
woke up my siblings,
right,
and they got my stepfather and were like, "Hey, your friend's here." So my stepfather actually sat down and he had a couple beers with this guy and a chat, and then my stepfather went back to bed and the guy left. The next morning he gets a call and he's like, "Hey, so and so died."
right.
And my stepfather was like, "Oh, he must have died after like 11 p.m. after when he left here." And they were like, "No, he died around supper time." So when this man actually came into the house and woke up three of my siblings,
Right,
and my stepfather came down, had a conversation, the butts were still in the ashtray, the beer bottle's still on the table,
right.
and he was already gone by this point.
When that
Well,
happened.
at this point, my mom and my dad were divorced, so my mom wasn't involved in the church,
Okay,
but she slept through the whole thing. which you have to know my mom, she wakes up if a mosquito farts. Like
Okay.
she's a very light sleeper. Everything wakes her up. So how she managed to stay asleep with my stepfather getting out of bed, my sister knocking on their bedroom door, and then my stepfather coming back, I don't know. It's very suspicious to me. Just knowing her the way I do, and then like knowing that story with my grandmother.
Right. Interesting.
Mm.
That's very interesting. I love that. I love that. So I've been doing seances for almost 10 years now. I found out that my great grandfather did seances in Chicago in the 20s and 30s, in the early 1900s. And so I didn't know that. And I have since learned that there's several people in my family that are psychic and that were psychic on both sides of my family, which is fascinating. But yeah, seances were always a really good way for people that actually knew what they were doing. I'm going to clarify that because there are people that don't. It's a great way to connect with the afterworld and gently and carefully just connect with a loved one last time and just visit and make that connection. But clearly this person that showed up with your dad needed to make one more stop before he left. And I have no doubt that is incredibly accurate to have so many people see him, cigarette butts in the ashtray and empty beer bottles aside. I mean, I love that. That is incredible. So that's a great story. I love that. That's incredible. But I also can't help but wonder if your grandmother was open to having a seance in the house. She probably knew a lot more than she shared.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm wondering, like, why she kept this inside. Was she also afraid? Because I do know that at one point, she was not doing well, and this was years before she actually passed. And the paramedics asked her, "Do you want to sign a DNR?" And that sent her into a panic attack, and she was like, "Don't let me die, don't let me die, don't let me die." And like she was very afraid of passing on.
Oh, wow.
So I do know that, but I also know that she wouldn't hear like any blasphemy against God or anything. And I don't know, I feel like she took a lot of secrets with her.
Well, at some point later on, if you want, we can talk about connecting with her and getting some questions answered. I think that would be very helpful for you. So we can talk about that another time also. But genuinely, I think at this time, I really want to ask you to think about other people listening and watching this that have kids, and what would you say to them about how to deal with this with children right now in this day and age? What do you think is an important thing to do?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important to listen. I feel like if we can all reach back in our memories, you would find that what your child may be experiencing and what you experienced at a young age maybe aren't so different.
Right.
My daughter has a lot of nightmares and different things. So one thing I taught her was a self-protection bubble.
Good.
And I taught her to just picture her energy source in a ball of white light. I said it can be white or it can be whatever color you want. You know, she said hers is rainbow because she's fabulous.
Nice.
And I said, just picture that energy and push it out over yourself so that you're in a bubble. And remember that this energy that you put out, nothing crosses it.
Right.
Right?
Right. Nice.
So
I just think it's important that we keep the conversation going, and that's the theme of my podcast. Is I love to hear everybody's stories, but because I want people to feel comfortable talking about the paranormal, regardless of their religious or non-religious beliefs. Because whether you are following the church or not, you know plenty of people that have had experiences that don't fit the church's narrative. It doesn't mean it's evil just because it's different. It doesn't mean that it's all bad. We have come such a long way, and we should definitely be looking at things with all the technology we have and all of the advancements and going to the moon, for gosh sakes, and Mars. You would think that it would be more common for people to step back from religious training and just try to analyze what it is am I seeing, what it is that I'm hearing, and where did this come from? And that denial should not be the first option. We should be able to question things and look and listen and trust yourself a little bit. You know, if you heard something weird, did you? Was it the ice machine, or was it someone visiting? I mean, why does that have to be always not a possibility? That's why I love meeting with other people that are involved in the paranormal, because at least I know that I have that in common with them, that they at least accept that there's things they don't know that are around, and they're willing to find out more about it. That to me gives me hope for humanity, because we need more people to be open-minded to whatever is out there, regardless of what it is. Yeah. So tell me what you do. You had something special you brought that you showed me earlier. Tell me about that.
Okay, so
and describe it for the listeners, because they can't see what you're going to show. So you got to describe it.
So as part of my Four Moon Witchery, I offer readings, which I do tarot, but I also do charm casting.
Okay.
And charm casting is actually a form of micromancy, which is divination using small objects.
Okay.
What I absolutely love about charm casting is how personalized it is. When I first started practicing witchcraft, every time I go online, it was like a list of, you need this, and you need, like, you know, everything was so much like money. Everything was money.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came across this TikTok creator. Her name is Emerald Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about charm casting and how you can literally make your own set out of everything.
Nice.
So, for example, in my set, I have these broken handcuffs.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
And then
she's showing a really teeny tiny set of handcuffs, like it would fit on your thumb.
And this little tiny screwdriver from a tech deck set.
Nice. Okay.
But there's also, like, other things. I underestimated how difficult it would be to get stuff out. Like this thing, this is something you use for, I believe it's to hold screws in place.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like,
so what is the purpose of these little tiny tools in this jar? What does that do?
So with these, what you do is every single piece you give meaning to.
Okay.
And it has no other meaning other than what it means to you.
Okay.
How you can cast it is, like, also completely customizable. I know people who how they do it is they have their clients pick out charms. I know someone else who has their clients reach in a bag, haul some out, and throw them on the cloth.
Okay.
I personally use a spoon.
Okay.
And it's soup.
Okay.
And I throw it on the mat, and then you just read them based on where they land, what they land next to. Okay. Some people use if they're upside down. So it's really cool.
So this actually sounds like a divination tool, also almost like runes. Yes? Am I getting that right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is like a divination tool. The only difference about this one.
Okay.
Pardon?
Tell me how someone would go about setting that up. How do you do that?
I do recommend starting small. Like my piece now is, or my set now is closed on 100 pieces. You don't need to start out that big.
Right.
Pick some key themes that you want
Okay.
and pick out pieces that remind you of those themes.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, I always use this particular piece right here.
Okay. And describe it for me.
It is the theater masks, the one that has the happy one and the sad one next to each other. And
Right.
it's just a little silver charm.
Okay.
So, what does this charm, like if you were to see this, what would this mean for you?
I would just think about, I don't know. I think of movies when I see something like that because it's comedy and tragedy. Yeah.
Right? So for
Okay.
you, it could be like unrealistic or in the movies or
Okay.
theatrical.
Gotcha. Okay.
For me, in my set, this means mixed emotions. I know
Ah.
someone else who said two-faced.
Oh, yeah.
Someone
Sure.
else said dramatic. So
Okay.
there's so many different things that
Right.
this can mean.
Okay.
I had another good example here, but it seems to have run away.
Okay.
Um, okay, we'll just go with this one.
Okay.
This is a lapis lazuli crystal heart.
Okay. It's
So
very
what?
pretty.
Thank you. What would this mean to you?
That to me would be true love because blue to me is a very powerful color. So yeah, true blue, I guess.
I love that. I love that. In my set, this means water.
Okay. That
It's
makes
the
sense.
water element.
Sure.
So like with this, you can completely customize it. You can make a charm set with absolutely no money. And
Okay.
like if you find a bunch of different rocks on the ground and you're like,
Right.
this one reminds me of love, and this one is a warning, and this one, whatever that piece tells you it means,
Okay.
that's what it means.
So
And however, pardon?
how do you use them then? So you collect these different pieces and they all mean different things. Then
Yep.
how do you actually use them? How does that work?
Well, I personally, I have a spoon and
Okay.
I scoop up a spoonful and I throw them on the mat.
Okay.
And then I'll read them based on where they land and what they land next to.
Okay.
And a big part of my readings is energy.
Okay.
So I do a lot based on that.
Okay.
You can get casting mats that
Okay.
have different focuses on them. And if you throw them on the casting mat, you
Mhm.
read the charm in respective to that.
Okay.
So like what's on the mat. Like say for example, if this charm or this lotus charm, which
Okay.
to me it says keep going,
Okay.
if that lands on a space that says something you need to avoid,
Okay.
then I would read that as there's something that you've been pushing for that you kind of need to relax a little bit on and just let
Very
it run
good.
its course a little bit.
Very good. So do you sell the mats to sprinkle these things on or?
I don't sell the mats.
Okay.
Um, I do have beginner charm casting kits though. I
Okay,
have
cool.
like when I sell them, it comes in a little treasure chest
Right.
and it has 30 charms, a crystal,
Hmm.
a dice, a 12-sided dice in case you want to incorporate astrology into it,
Gotcha. Okay.
and a little spoon.
Nice. That sounds like fun though.
Oh, it's so fun. You have to try it.
It sounds
If
very
you
fun.
if you like divination at all, I highly recommend it. It's deeply personal. And like
Yeah.
I said, just let it speak to you. And that is the most important thing. Don't
Right.
like, you can always look up online different symbols and what they mean and stuff, but I
Right.
highly recommend, like, don't overload yourself on a bunch of different things because someone says they mean something.
Right.
Go personal with it. Even if you want like a bunch of buttons that are different colors because color
Right.
speaks to you.
Right. So what I love about this, Samantha, is that for someone that is either uncomfortable or intimidated by tarot, this seems very unique for each individual and very personal. And so maybe for someone that just needs a little reassurance about decision making or how they're feeling, this could be a really unique tool to help
Mhm.
figure things out for yourself about what your life is doing or where you're headed. So I love that. This sounds really useful. I love that.
Oh, it's
So,
so much fun.
so do you teach people how to use it or how it works? Is that something that you offer?
Um, I haven't I haven't offered to teach this because I feel like it's so simple and personal that I'm not sure like how it would even turn into something teaching other than what we just did then.
Gotcha.
Like once you do a couple examples, like for example, there's only so many times you can hold something up and be like, what does this mean to you? Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I
So
love
the
that
best
though.
I love it too. And the best advice I can like tell anyone about this form of divination is go with your heart, listen to your soul, and go where the wind takes you, kitten.
Right. That's great. I love that. That is really fun. I have never seen that before. I thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. I have to
You're
ask, what does
welcome.
screwdriver mean to you?
This screwdriver to me means fixing something.
I love
So
that. That's
if
really
this
cool.
if this was like to fall together, the screwdriver and the theater
Hmm.
faces,
Okay.
I would probably read that as there's something that you're a bit confused about and you're debating if you should fix it or how to fix it.
Mm,
There, it seems like there's some hidden information that
okay.
you kind of need to look for.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
and it's going to be different for everyone because, like I said, a lot of my channeling is through energy.
Right.
So, like, if I'm doing this, like, I could they feel the presence of someone's loved one, you
Okay.
know? And
Okay.
while I don't see them, like I can how do I explain it? Like I can feel them and if they're
Right.
showing me something, I
Right.
can like if they're showing me a hamburger, I can
Right.
feel a hamburger.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like
Yes.
if they have brown hair, I can feel brown hair,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I get it. I love that. Well, and that to me is one of the funnest parts about the paranormal is this is a huge blanket that covers so many things. I mean, I grew up knowing that there were things around me that I didn't understand, but I knew that they were there. There was no
Mhm.
doubt in my mind. They were very in my face, and they didn't give me a chance to deny them. They were just there. And so, for people that discover that ghosts could be real for the first time, I remember that feeling, but I was very young and I didn't really connect the dots. I just saw them, they were just there. And so I think that the excitement and enthusiasm for the paranormal that's been building for years um, is really, to me, an exciting time because I think we need a break from humanity sometimes and to get back to the wonder that we had when we were kids. Because there's something amazing as a child to think about unicorns, and there's something incredible about believing in a fairy or that someone that's passed on could actually tell you they love you still. There's things about the paranormal that it's such a broad statement and such a all-encompassing thing, and that's why I love having so many different people to share their stories like yourself, because it's so unique. Everybody's connection is different, and it's wonderful to hear about all of it. I mean, the whole thing just fascinates me. And just this little thing that you do, I've never heard of that before. I love that. That's wonderful. I love to learn about new stuff, so I'm excited. So, if people want to get a hold of you to do a tarot reading, for example, how do you set that up? Do you do things on Zoom? Do you do things on Facebook Messenger? How do you go about doing that?
Well, right now I don't really have a great place to film.
Okay.
So normally what I do is I set the appointment up. You can do it either Facebook
Hmm.
or email.
Hmm.
Um, and basically I draw your cards and I take a picture and then I
Oh,
will
okay.
type up your reading.
That's great. That's
And then
wonderful.
yeah, and then I'll send it off.
Hmm.
And the great thing about this is that, like, have you ever gotten a reading done and then, like, the next day you're like, crap, I wish I had have asked this. I
Hmm.
wish I had have, like, got clarification on this. The
Right.
best part about the way I do it
Hmm.
is you can message me
Right.
and, like, your reading is right there, and I can
Right.
tap back into that reading
That's
and
fantastic.
get some clarification or answer
Right.
any questions you may have remembered
Right.
because you know if I'm just doing say a reading in person, and if I, like, for example, I did the regatta, which is a big event here in Newfoundland,
Okay.
and I did so many readings in one day. So if
Yeah.
someone were to come back and be like, hey, I have a question about this reading, it's like,
Oh dear.
um
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, can you tell me, like, what you remember so I can try to, like, channel
Right.
back into that energy? But,
Right.
like, with this way, the reading is there, and that way the person can also reference back to it if they need
Right.
to.
Right.
So there are benefits to doing it this way. Some people find it too cold for their liking,
Right.
but it does have its benefits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So is there anything that fascinates you that you're kind of looking into right now to do with the paranormal?
Right now I'm actually learning the runes.
Are you?
I
Fun.
am. And I'm very excited. I started learning the runes. It was well over a year ago, but then I took a break and then I dabbled and I took a break. And then a few weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I'm taking another break. It's not going anywhere. And it was like, as soon as I made that decision, I started having people I knew message me random things about the runes. Like,
Funny.
one person asked me if I wanted to do a panel at their market. And then I had another friend who was like, hey, you know, let's just chat about the runes. And then I had someone else message me, and I like, okay, got it. I'm not going anywhere this time.
Ah,
I am locked in.
it's
Okay.
timing. It's timing. If you have a chance, I've interviewed a woman that is very good at the runes. Her name is Ingrid. And if you look at my episodes, I'll link it to this episode so that you could find it easier. But she's taught runes for a long time, and they kind of just found her. They literally just found her. She was a real estate person and was very well to do, and dropped everything and started doing the runes and has done it ever since.
Oh,
And
wow.
so yeah, and she's a kick in the butt. She's very involved in the runes. She's in my area in Oregon. I'm in Washington, but um, she's fascinating. So you might want to connect with her and chat about it because she's a wealth of information on the runes. She's
I
wonderful.
love that.
Yeah, she's delightful. So what is something you're really proud of to do with the things to do with the paranormal? Things that you've done or the work you've done? What are you proud of?
Um, I would say I am most proud of the times that I was able to successfully um what do you call it, perform or do mediumship. Like,
Yeah.
it was actually during um I'm in this group on Facebook,
Hmm.
um and it's for all over the world, and
Hmm.
they basically have all these different mediumship exercises and pendulum exercises and tarot.
Nice.
And I did a mediumship exercise.
Hmm.
And while information came through, it wasn't for my partner.
Okay.
So what they do in that group is they're like, okay, post it to the wall to see if, you know, a group member recognizes it.
Hmm.
So um, it turned out to be for this woman. I had physically described her child who had passed.
Hmm.
Um, certain things I don't really want to get into it
No,
because
that's
it's not
fine.
my
That's
story,
fine.
but
Right.
just different things that were going on and that kind of thing. And she was like, you have no idea how much I needed this today.
Oh,
Like,
good.
this is something that I needed. And I was like, you know what? Like, it was at that moment that I kind of really let go of that last bit of fear.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, I still struggle with doubt.
Yeah.
And like, is all this really real despite the experiences I've had and things I've
Right.
done? I
Right.
still struggle with that. So if you struggle with that, it's normal,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Yes, it is.
And but yeah, it was at that moment that I realized that this is something I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I get that. Helping people, I think, is the best energy I get. It's the ability to do anything for someone else that you have no earthly reason to be able to do. Knowing things that you have no earthly reason to know and being able to share something that might actually help someone, that's a humongous blessing. That's a huge blessing. And believing it and understanding it are two different things. And it's so easy to think of yourself as, I don't know, frail or human. And no, I don't know. We get these doubts and wonder. And luckily for me, and thankfully for me, with age, I've lost some of my doubts because it's like a muscle that you exercise.
Mm.
You do it over and over and over again, and it becomes muscle memory, just like writing your name. Um, I've learned through science that the pineal gland in our brain is something everyone has. Everyone has this, and I've always believed that everyone could be psychic if they tried. If they did, they could. And so it's not a surprise to me that when people spend time doing anything, whether it's tarot or any other form of divination, that they would get better at it, because I do believe it centers from energy in the pineal gland. And the more you exercise it, just like a runner or a writer or any other physical thing that we do, I do believe it gets much stronger and you become more accurate and you become more detailed because you're using it. Literally, plain and simple. It's not magic. It's just science. It's working. It's open. It's picking up signals. It's picking up information. And you're just receiving it because you're learning how to. I think everybody's got it. I wish more people used it because I think we'd be a lot happier if we did. I really do. I appreciate your time so much, and I am so glad that you agreed to let me interview you today because I've been looking forward to this. Is there anything else about what you do on your Facebook page that you would like people to know? Oh, I know. How about, like, do you have different types of tarot readings that you do? Do they vary, or is it one size fits all? What do you do?
Um, I offer basically 3 different sizes. I offer 3 card, 5 card, and 10 card.
Nice.
Um, with the 10 card, if someone has like a specific situation that they want to know about, I'll just do the traditional Celtic cross.
Cool.
However, if someone is looking for guidance, I actually created a tarot spread myself that asks for guidance from your higher self, your lower self, and your future self, along with
Nice.
your ancestors, spirit guides. And there's one more person in the spread that I'm forgetting, and I'll remember them as soon as we hang up.
It's okay.
The spread is on my Facebook page. If anyone wanted to check it out, use it.
Okay.
It's open to the public.
I love it. That's great. Well, this is Holly from Holly's Pandorium and Sam from Four Moon Witchery in Newfoundland, telling everyone thank you so much for listening. And please be sure, as my friend Jay likes to remind me, hit the like button. It only takes a nanosecond and it really means a lot. And please share with your friends. If you know someone that might want to listen to stuff like this or watch stuff like this, I think it's good for everybody to hear about the paranormal a little bit. It's good for our minds to stretch them a little. Have a wonderful day, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.